Okay. Which one? Oh, so we have to this one. Can we have that for now here? Yeah. He said he'll help with passing on the money.
1, 2, 3.
Well, it's wins and a candidate. That's just it.
Can we start?
You can start it.
Okay, tēnā koutou katoa, and greetings to all on behalf of Ekta New Zealand, Hutt Multicultural Council and Voice of Aroha. Good evening. Welcome to our dialogue with the candidates for Hutt South on matters relating to ethnic communities and our future. I'm Prabha Ravi, and it is my pleasure to be the MC and facilitator today, along with Luis Perez from Voice of Aroha. And I will get Luis to introduce himself and also explain how the timekeeping will work. He's going to be our timekeeper.
Do you open in karaoke? Cool, awesome. You? Okay, cool, awesome. Just really quick. So kia ora koutou katoa. My name is Luis. I'm from Voice of Aroha, and I represent a very small minority group. So that's why it's so important for us to have our voices out here. So timekeeping. In terms of the timekeeping, you'll have 2 minutes and the opening remarks. And I'm really gonna be really tough on you guys. It's gonna be 2 minutes. When the alarm goes off, you'll have 10 seconds to wrap it up. And I'll be really tough on you, so like, wrap it up. And then that's how it's gonna work at the beginning. So opening karakia.
Thank you. Thank you all for making the time. We will start with the karakia, followed by a welcome address by Winsome Lamb, President of the Hutt Multicultural Council.
Thank you. My karakia basically is going to be a waita, and some of you here will actually know it. So if you know, please sing along with me. Wairua tapu. John? Wairua tapu kumai. Keep singing. Nau mai ki kone. Wairua tapu arahia. Korero mai ano. We do it in English now. Holy Spirit, welcome. You are welcome here. Guide us, Holy Spirit. Speak to us again. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to come and join us here tonight for this dialogue. As you heard Prabha say before, tonight is a combination of ECTA, Voice of Aroha, and Hutt Multicultural Council. And I'm just going to put in the plug-in for Hutt Multicultural Council right now. On Saturday, we have our big Spring Multi-Fest, starting at about 11:15 at the St. James Church. There'll be food stalls in this building you're in now. All the performances will be in the main church. So please come along. Toilets are over there, if anybody's looking for toilets. In case of earthquake, what do? Thank you. In case of fire, you run out the entry you came in. There are a couple of doors on the side that you can run out. In case of earthquake, we already say that? You already said that. Follow what Louis does. Okay? All right. So in case of tsunami, follow Manjit. Okay? He has a lot of food at home. But right now, I'm really pleased that we have Chris, Ben, Nilu, and who are you? And Junie here, and Max here. All right. So Max, will apologize that you have to sit over there. You came in late. All right. So thank you all so much for being here tonight. And right now, we'll hand it back to Prabha.
Thank you, Winsome. Hutt, like many other cities in New Zealand, has a growing ethnic population, making us one of the key stakeholders for our government and representatives. It's important for us to hear from our candidates on their views, policies that directly affect us to make an informed decision. Hence, this session is very important. To provide a context to our session, I'm just going to share with you some data because we were going to present a slide presentation. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the projector to work. So quickly, I'm going to just share some 5 different data sets. Ethnic population in 2020 was 15.9% Asian, 1.4% from Mela community, and 1.3% from other ethnicity, making it 18.6%. Fact two, ethnic representation in politics was a total of 8.4% out of the 18.6% population. So 8.7% MPs in parliament, 6.7% were Asian out of the 807,000 people, and 1.7% were from Mela community, which is 2 candidates out of 71,000 people. Fact 3, spending for the year ending June 2022, Ministry of Ethnic Communities, the figure was 15.6 million. Maori Affairs was 87.33 million. Ministry of Pacifica People was 30.59 million, and another 33.65 million on non-departmental expenditure. Fact 4, Maori, Pacifica, and Asian adults are likely to experience racial discrimination. Survey shows 13.8% Maori, 9.5% Pacifica, and 12.3% Asian and 4.8% non-Pacifica, Asian, and Maori experienced racial discrimination. The last fact, 56.7% of Asian people aged 15 years or over reported high levels of trust in Parliament in 2021. While this figure is very impressive, which is actually a drop from 62% since 2018. So that is just to give you a context on what our session is going to be like. Given the context, we have with us 4 candidates representing 4 parties with us today. I'll not be reading their bios, and we have got the 5th candidate, Max, as well from Vision New Zealand. And we wanted their bios to be displayed on the screen. Again, we are not able to do that, but we are happy to send the information of their bios later on. I will do a brief introduction when I invite them to do their opening remark. Following this, I will be asking 2 pre-advised questions to the candidates. Each candidate will have an opportunity to respond, and again, no longer than 2 minutes, as you heard from our timekeeper. He's a bit tough. He's going to be strict with timekeeping. This will be followed by interaction with the audience. This is all about you today on 5 topics, namely immigration, health and well-being, employment, and the glass ceiling to progress beyond a certain level in higher roles or higher pay, funding, and law and order. We will spend 5 minutes on each topic, and audience will be welcome to ask questions or comment on any of these. A bell will ring after 5 minutes, and we will move to the next topic. So some ground rules before we start our session. For the candidates, we request you to focus just on what you or your party's view, policy, or actions is on the topic question asked when you respond. Please stick to the time given. A bell will go with the time when the time is up. And for the audience, keep your questions, comments short and sharp. No personal situations, stories, or issues to be shared in your questions. Keep it general. Please line up near the microphone. We've got a microphone there if you wish to ask a question. Say your name and any party affiliation you have or you are a member of, and also indicate if the question is to a particular candidate or to all of them. Please do not repeat any question that's already been asked. Again, we will give 2 minutes to each of the candidates after these questions to present your closing remarks, followed by Max will be giving his 5 minutes introduction, and also you will be sharing what you would like to share with us. And then a vote of thanks by Ekta New Zealand President Manjit Singh. So let's move on with our opening remarks. So I will start with Ginny Anderson. Ginny Anderson is the Labour candidate for Hutt South in the upcoming election. Apart from her several ministerial portfolios, she is a strong advocate of Tereo Maori and is apparently fluent in Tereo. So wow, that's impressive. Thank you, Ginny. Can I welcome you to introduce yourself?
Just hold it like that, is it? Okay. Well, kia ora koutou. It's a pleasure to be here today. The clock's ticking. So, I'm really proud to be the MP for Hutt South, and I love doing the work each day of being an electorate MP. I have extra support. I really enjoy that work, and my doors are always open to people in the Hutt if they need that support or advocacy. So what I've been doing over the past, 5 or 6 years since being an MP is fighting hard for the Hutt to get some good things here, not only for us now, but for the next generation. The biggest one is Riverlink. So previously, while National had promised that, it wasn't funded. So at the time it was promised, the National Land Transport Fund was about $2.2 billion oversubscribed. So by funding that, it means we can have the flood protection, we can reduce that congestion that goes over Melling Bridge, and we can open up the river for a great recreational purpose. That'll be a game changer for the Hutt going into the future. The next one, which is really important, is housing. So when National was in government, we lost about 315 state houses that were removed here in the Hutt. We've built back around about 200, and there's over 500 in the pipeline. So if you look through Apuni, for example, these beautiful warm, dry homes for our families to have there, and the kids can go to the local school, which is High School have had a full rebuild. Both those schools had either mould, damp classrooms, leaky roofs. They've been completely fixed up, and they're progressive of having a much better place for young people to be able to go and learn each day. On top of that, every single one of our primary schools in the Hutt Valley, we're at Maungaraki last night, that's got a brand new library. They've either got a new playground, a new classroom, a new roof. All of the schools right across the Hutt Valley have had an upgrade. All of these things are so important. The next thing I want to do is make sure Hutt Hospital is fixed up. That's next. So I'm asking you to vote for me, Ginny Anderson, and vote Labour to keep all this good work going.
Thank you, Ginny. Next, we would like to invite Chris Bishop. Chris is in his third term as a Member of Parliament, and is National Spokesperson for Housing, Urban Development and Infrastructure, ranked third in the national lineup. He's also National's chair for the 2023 election campaign, and he was, from 2017 to 2020, he was the MP for Hutt South, the first time National had ever held the seat, and is now a National List MP based in Hutt South. Welcome, Chris.
Well, thank you very much, Prabha. It's wonderful to be here at this forum, and thank you to you and to all of the team for organising it. I want to acknowledge former Mayor John Terrace in particular, who has been a real stalwart of diversity and ethnic communities in the Hutt Valley, and thank you for all that you have done in the past and continue to do. The focus is on ethnic communities in the Hutt Valley, so let me just say that I am someone who believes that immigration into New Zealand and the variety of different faiths and ethnicities and religions that we have in the Hutt Valley is something that enriches the Hutt and makes us a more vibrant and culturally better place, alongside economically, of course, as well. But it's not just about economics, it's about the enrichment that the diversity that the Hutt has. And it's something that I've tried to live in. It's something that I believe in. I've tried to live that belief and those values in my time as an MP. I've been an MP for 9 years now, and some of the most satisfying parts of the job are attending things like citizenship ceremonies run by the council, where you see people who've often moved to New Zealand, often from sometimes quite difficult backgrounds, go through that process of residency and then become citizens, and acknowledge the outstanding work of the Hutt Multicultural Council over many years on holding things like what we're going to enjoy on Saturday, just over the road from here, and Multifest and Race Unity Day and celebrations like that. I think government's got a role in fostering that, and council does as well, but actually the real strength of those institutions and those celebrations come from the community. They come from all of us in this room, and they come from people putting their hand in their pocket and deciding to hold events like Multifest, for example, things like Raksha Bandhan, which we celebrated just the other day, things like Vaisakhi at the Gurdwara, which we celebrated not so long ago. The real strength of our community comes from individuals and families enjoying that, and the role of MPs is to help participate and foster that in government. I'm looking forward to continuing to do that. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Chris. Next is Neelu Jennings, is Greens Party for Hutt South, and her parents are from Kenya, a Kiwi Kenyan. She is an advocate of equity and holds a master's in disability policy.
Testing. Ready? Kia ora koutou. Cornelia Jennings, Cornelia Jennings, tōku ingoa. I live in Te Awa Kairangi, Lower Hutt, with my husband, and I'm a full-time mum to my 2 young children. I'm also a disabled person, having both a visual and a balance impairment, the consequence of a brain injury that I underwent when I was 16 years old. But even with all the support that I do have, life for me and for my community is tough, it's tiring, because we find it really difficult to access services that many people take for granted, like work or education. My parents were part of a community who faced barriers too, and I'm also part of that same. I'm part of that same community, but to a much lesser degree. My parents were a part of an ethnic minority. I and the Green Party feel that anyone who wants to come and make Aotearoa their home deserves to have a fair chance. So the Green Party, the Green Party has a plan. They want to create fair and achievable pathways to residency. They want to keep families together. They want to remove the barriers and the rules, the really, really unfair rules that immigrants have to go through to come to New Zealand. And we also want to up our quota of refugees in New Zealand, and we also want to make sure that, that we fund more resettlement programs. Cool. Yep. So the Green Party has a plan the Green Party has a plan to protect the environment, to restore nature, and to create a fairer, inclusive Aotearoa for everyone. Kia ora.
Thank you. Thank you, Neelu. We'll now invite Dr. Ben Wiley Van Eerd. He works as a scientist on the development of medical and ultrasound devices. Ben's top priority as a candidate is to reduce the cost of housing. He hopes to bring the qualities of a good scientist to Parliament: observation, curiosity, and critical thinking. Ben is TOPS candidate for Hutt South in the upcoming election. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you very much, Prabha, and thank you all for coming here today. Really appreciate the chance to be able to speak for you and to promote my party and my policies in the upcoming election. My name is Ben Wiley van Eert, and I am the local candidate for TOP, the Opportunities Party. I'm a scientist in my day job, as Prabha has already said, and I like to play board games in my spare time. And then once every 3 years or so, I stand for Parliament and I try to make this country a better place. You're too kind. Thank you so much. Look, the first thing I want to be very clear about is that I am not a migrant. I am not a member of the ethnic communities of New Zealand. I do not have that experience. I am here today really as much as to learn and to grow my understanding as I am to present my party and its ideas. So please do tell me if I get something wrong. I want to learn. I want to become a better representative, maybe of Parliament someday. The ideas of social cohesion and of the rights and responsibilities of citizens are a very important issue for our party. They're important for our leader, Ralph Manji, and they're also very important for our deputy leader, Natalia Albert. Natalia is a migrant to New Zealand from Mexico, so she does carry some of that personal experience with her. And she also led in the development and the implementation of many of the recommendations of the Royal Commission of Inquiry into the March 15th terror attacks. So this is an area that really she knows a lot about. The March 15th terror attacks focused the attention of the nation, perhaps for the first time, on the needs of our ethnic communities. The response of the New Zealand to this tragedy was, I think, heartwarming to see, but we have not sustained it very well. Since then, it has faded. We see signs creeping back that our social cohesion is fading away a little bit, but we must not forget. We must ensure that everybody is safe in our communities, and we must put in the work to maintain a high degree of our social cohesion. So I look forward to the discussion that's going to follow. Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you, Dr. Ben. Okay, we're going to move to the meaty part of the session. We're going to go to the first pre-advised question. A key recommendation of the Royal Commission of Inquiry into the Christchurch killings is the promotion of social cohesion. What will your party do to give effect to the various actions required, particularly in recommendations 29, 35, 36, and 37? Just for those who do not know what those recommendations are, I'm going to give a very, very brief intro of those recommendations. Recommendation 29, Ministry of Social Development to develop social cohesion strategic framework. Recommendation 35 in particular talks about workforce diversity and attracting diverse talent for public service leadership roles at all three tiers, first, second, and third tier roles. Recommendation 36, young New Zealanders to learn their role, rights, and responsibility on the value of ethnic and religious diversity, inclusion. Recommendation 37, Minister for Social Development to create opportunity for regular public conversations on social cohesion and the value of cultural, ethnic, and religious diversity, contributing to a well-functioning society. So these are the four main recommendations, and our question to the panel is, what will your party do to give effect? Okay. So I'm going to pass the microphone to Ginny, and probably 3 minutes max.
So thank you very much. So as Minister for Police, the main recommendation out of the Royal Commission of Inquiry has been, for me personally, has been establishing a firearms registry. And so now we have that in place in New Zealand as a way of making sure that we keep firearms out of the hands of dangerous people. And of course, also by banning all of those semi-automatic weapons that were used before in Christchurch in March 15th. So there's a lot there, Prabha, to talk about. So in terms of recommendation 35, so in general, the government accepted all 44 of the recommendations within the Royal Commission of Inquiry, and our goal is for New Zealand to be a safe country where everyone feels they belong, where all cultures and human rights are valued and celebrated, and where everyone can participate and contribute. So in terms of 35, we've established the Ethnic Communities Graduate Program. So this means there are specific pathways in the public service for graduates from ethnic communities in order to improve the representation of ethnic minorities within New Zealand's public service. And we're on track to really improving those numbers. In terms of recommendation 36, implementing a trial to support young children to improve their self-regulation, resilience and social skills. So there's a whole program in place in relation to that, and I can talk about that for a lot, but I will go to the next one. In terms of recommendation 14, establishing a national centre of research and excellence to focus on understanding diversity and promoting social cohesion. So this is the work that's been undertaken by the Honourable Minister Priyanka Radhakrishnan, and so she's taken this up to really look at how social cohesion in New Zealand works and how we can continue to foster that. So a big part of that is having the Centre for Excellence that will bring together the work in universities and academia, civil society and government to research the prevention of radicalisation and the promotion of social cohesion in New Zealand. This will help inform public discussion and also guide the work of policy and agencies across government. I'll just finish up by saying this work is so critical for us. It's those connections that bind us and unite us as a country and not divide us. So the more that we have discussions and forums to be able to talk about our differences and celebrate those, I believe that makes us stronger as a country. And the more we have opportunities to have conversations like this one, the better.
Thank you. Thank you, Jenny. Can we go to Chris?
Thank you. The events of March 15 were a wake-up call for, I think, many people in New Zealand. The Royal Commission was then widely supported across the Parliament, and the National Party endorsed all but one of the findings and recommendations of the Royal Commission. The one we didn't agree with was the recommendation around the development of a hate speech regime. We think the current law provides for adequate protections against racial hostility. I think in my conversations with some people, and I have visited the Kilburnie Mosque, for example, my sense is that the communities feel like implementation of the recommendations has been patchy and could be better. That's just my sense. I'd be open to feedback and views from you, most importantly, around that. I think some good progress has been made, but I think there's more to be done. To be honest, I actually think government can only do so much. There's a lot in the Royal Commission recommendations around a strategic framework. Just being honest with you, strategic frameworks are what governments do when they don't know what else to do. There are many strategic frameworks in government. There's a strategic framework for literally every area of public policy. That's not what creates social cohesion, right? Social cohesion is actually politicians and leaders in communities showing leadership. So the best thing we can do in government, and I mean we as in collectively across the political spectrum, is not seek to divide our communities on the basis of race, ethnicity or religion. And sadly, in New Zealand, we do have politicians in the past, I'm not pointing to any particular party or anyone on the stage, but you can all think of people in the past who have divided New Zealand on the grounds of ethnicity or race or religion. That is wrong. That is what creates social disharmony and social incohesion. So that's the best thing we can do as leaders, is live our values, foster diversity, promote cosmopolitanism, enjoy the fact that we are a multicultural society where migration and migrants play an increasingly important role. Welcome that. Don't divide on the basis of where someone came from or what their particular religious or ethnic background is. That's the best thing that politicians can do. Alongside that, as I said in my introductory remarks, I think the role of government is to fund and support different festivals that have now become a part of everyday New Zealand life. I think about Diwali, which 20 years ago was unknown to most Kiwis. Most European Kiwis had no idea what Diwali was. Now it's become one of the biggest civic events in Wellington that people from all different walks of life enjoy, every year around October. And there are many other religious festivals that could be similar. And government, both at a local government level and a central government level, has a role to do that And that's certainly something, as I said, that I've tried to do and that I'll continue to do. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Shall we go to Nilu?
So my family lived in Christchurch. My mum and dad are Muslim, and I know people who were at the mosque at that Friday on that Friday, who were at their Friday prayers. One of those people is he's my cousin's wife's dad. He has undergone maybe about 2 years of intensive psychotherapy because of the trauma of that day. And even when you talk to him now, he still shakes and he's still scared about it. I'm so sad that it happened. And it shouldn't have. And I think we need to make sure that this kind of stuff just will never ever happen again. I never want it to happen again. The Green Party really welcomed all the Royal Commission's recommendations, and wants to implement them all. We specifically want to be working at the level of children because we think that change, social change and promoting social cohesion starts with children. So we want to implement social cohesion and diversity programs within tamariki at all schools. We think it's important that schools promote diversity and celebrating diversity and promote the benefits of difference. As a disabled person, I'm also really, really aware of the need for these programs because we face the exact same issues in the disability sector. So, I mean, there's so much work that needs to be done, and I think I really hope that we don't ever have to go through another tragedy to wake up and realize that we need to do something about it because, that would just be tragic. Thank you.
Thank you, and we pass on the microphone to Ben, Dr. Ben.
Thank you. So my understanding around the Royal Commission report is that the consultation and the work done by that Royal Commission was excellent. But now, like so many other reports that the government has commissioned over the years, it sort of sits a bit on a shelf. I agree with Chris, the implementation of this leaves something to be desired, and I think we should go further to implement these recommendations of the report. We don't need to do more work to find out more answers. We have the answers. It's a matter of having the political courage to make the changes that the report recommends. One key change that I think would be important to make is just to see the reporting lines for the Royal Commission of Inquiry expanded a little bit. It's been presented to the government, and all parties, I think, in Parliament have given a response to that. But within the public service itself, the education, the health, the police ministries I think there needs to be more awareness of this report and its findings within all levels of those ministries themselves. This should be an all-of-government response, not just a Ministry for Ethnic Peoples response. Government has a responsibility to do more to promote ongoing social cohesion, and that means putting more focus on the pay gaps experienced by our ethnic communities, to make sure that members of ethnic communities have access to leadership roles within the public service. And it needs to be standard in any big piece of public work to ask, how will this affect our ethnic communities? In the same way that it is standard to ask how this will affect our Māori communities. And just personally, a final thought is that I would like to see the politicians themselves be much more active in promoting and protecting social cohesion. We need to make respect for diverse communities a core part of our national character, no matter what our political leanings, and politicians are among those who can really lead that change. So I think it would be great to see even more effort from our politicians than they are already giving in this space. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben. So we'll move on to the next question. The Education Review Office in its report notes, learners from ethnic community experience widespread racist bullying, which is too often not taken seriously. Learners don't feel they belong. Families face barriers to engage with schools. Teachers need to understand learners, which is key to learners' experience at school. So, what will your party do to address these concerns? We need specific actions as to what you would be doing to address some of these issues that's been reported by the Education Review Office. So, we'll start from the other side. Chris?
Yeah, sure. I
Yeah,
won't
2
take 2 minutes. I think all of you in this room will know that there is racism in our schools. And the good thing about racism in schools is that it's the easiest thing to stamp out because you're dealing with young children. And they, in some ways, have young minds that are the easiest to shape. And what that means is that the Ministry of Education and the teacher training has to be robust and sufficient so that we can try and change behaviours and change minds through the schooling system. I think about my own experience growing up in the Hutt Valley. I was privileged enough to be in my primary school class that had people from literally about 15 different countries in it, and I remember the racist remarks. But children can learn and grow, but you've got to have the system geared up to do that. So specifically, I wasn't aware of the exact report that you had talked about, Prabha, until we saw the questions. Thank you. What I'm going to do is talk to Erica Stanford, who's our education spokesperson, about that and make sure she's aware of that and make sure it's taken into account as part of National's education policy, which we have not yet released. We've released quite a bit of it, which some of you would have seen, but our wider education manifesto has not come out yet. I'm going to make sure she has seen that and seen that there are potentially some specific things we can do as a result of that. There's some things that ERO can do, sorry, not so much ERO, but the ministry can do, but I think some stuff around teacher training, but also potentially some things in the curriculum as well. Because as you will all know in this room, when you learn about other cultures and people that are unfamiliar to you, it helps break down those cultural misunderstandings and makes it easier to get along with people, and that's how you ultimately combat racism. I also think the Human Rights Commission's got a role to play as well. I think about the campaign, I think it was three or 4 years ago now, led by Dame Susan Devoy, Give Nothing to Racism, which was a very high-profile campaign. And again, that goes back to the point I've made a couple of times now around the role of government to foster that. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Jenny?
Thank you. That's a great question, Prabha. And we know that there is always still racism present within the community, and the best way we can stamp it out is to talk to our children and to make sure that they are able to ask questions. And so what we've done is made sure that there are resources now available as part of the new curriculum on diversity and inclusion, so that there are conversations happening right at an early age in our primary schools, so that we can learn to recognise and celebrate difference. That's a really important tool to be able to give our teachers the confidence and the ability to teach those important lessons, and to make sure that we encourage good behaviour and don't encourage poor behaviour. We know that students who are happy and confident about who they are learn better, and we want good learners. We want people to feel proud of their heritage and be able to bring that to school and celebrate that. So having a curriculum that does that and having teachers that are confident and encouraging that is really important. These new resources are designed to foster a sense of confidence and trust and appreciate the rich diversity we have in New Zealand. And also schools are a great place for this to happen. And we see this happening now in schools with sharing food, sharing special celebration Celebration Days, Diwali, and a whole range of others. This is a great opportunity for people to learn from each other and grow in terms of strengths. We've also increased the access to mental health support when children are struggling. So mana ake is in many of our schools, and a lot of high schools now have a mental health counsellor in place. So if children are still being subjected in any way to things that is challenging their mental health, we've implemented good counselling services in schools to help children equip themselves with the tools to be able to become stronger. The other one I'll finish on is teaching New Zealand history in schools. This is also about a history of our immigration in New Zealand, and so enabling local primary schools to learn about their own history and be able to teach that to young students is a really empowering thing. So there's lots of good things we're doing, and we'll keep doing those.
Thank you, Jenny. Jenny?
So yeah, I very much like what Jenny's just talked about. We, the Green Party, also see that there is a real need in schools. Obviously, what I kind of talked about my first point. I think starting, changing children. This is New Zealand is a very has been very dominated by Pākehā for a long time. And a lot of people, especially in the South Island, I find, because that's where I'm from, there is a lot of racism. I experienced racism when I was at school, and I know a lot of my friends, Asian and my ethnic minority friends, also experienced a lot of racism. We didn't have anything at schools. We never had any program. There weren't any programs about social cohesion, diversity, or inclusion. But this is one of the recommendations, which I think is awesome, to start doing these programs and ensuring that everyone at who goes to school at primary school level understands these really, really important values. And I think for the Green Party, we want to make sure that schools are totally funded. We want to make sure that schools are funded so that they can afford to do these things. At the moment, we know that we've got this massive deficit. We've got schools which are underfunded, under-resourced, and people are just not able to, teachers aren't able to afford, they don't have the ability to be able to deliver these programs. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure the schools are funded so that teachers can do these kind of things. And we want to upskill teachers and other people at schools to understand diversity and as it relates to the children. We also want to have mental health hubs and make sure there is wraparound support for students who undergo discrimination or any sort of negativity, and also work with their whānau, because that's also really important. Kia ora.
That's true. The Opportunities Party is a big believer in the need for civics education for our young people, so that they understand what it means to be a citizen of New Zealand. I think it's sort of ironic that often people with migrant experience have a much more solid understanding of what it means to be a citizen of New Zealand, because you have been through that process. You know what it takes to become a New Zealand citizen. A lot of people coming through our school systems, they don't have that same level of understanding, that same level of education. But there should be, I think. Coming into the status of being a New Zealand citizen by growing up from being a child is also an important journey, and one that we should keep the education of citizenship in. They need to understand their rights, their responsibilities, what services are publicly provided and how to access them, how to cooperate and negotiate with people who may hold different views from yourself, and how we engage as a country in collective decision making. So these things aren't currently well understood. Even for some very well-educated people, they might not understand how our voting system works. It's not hugely complicated, but that information just hasn't been consistently provided to everybody. They're not well understood, and it is a barrier for increasing social cohesion. People are less likely to be tricked by those inciting racial abuse if they understand how society works, and if they understand what place society provides for themselves inside it. We have put forward a policy of providing paid week-long civics courses for young people to learn about this as something that could be started immediately, very, very quickly. It's not currently, it takes some time to stand up an education curriculum, but these courses could start very, very quickly so that it can start now. It's part of our teal card policy that also provides healthcare and public transport to our young people free of charge. Long term, we want to have this civics learning integrated into schools so that it can start early on in a child's life. I actually think that the more difficult job is going to be to figure out how to provide that civics education and knowledge to adults. So, we'll see how to do that as time goes on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, now we will open the floor for questions on 5 topics. The first topic is going to be immigration, which is a hot topic amongst ethnic communities. And I'm just going to give some pointers on parental visa, long wait times, lack of direct contact, forced to go to immigration advisors, no attraction of talent, and abuse. So these are some of the pointers that have come from other sessions, and we've just added to our slide presentation, which again, we couldn't present. So if anyone has got any questions on any of the immigration issues, you're welcome to use the mic there and ask your question. Yeah.
I have a comment to make. In it, on the people who have come on the work visa and were stuck there. I think your work visa scheme is a great scheme. I think it should be lauded. But when people have come here, get stranded because of some agent or some employer, and then the state steps in to take care of these people on taxpayers' money, I am concerned with that kind of action. I'm concerned that the abuse by agents, now the state has to fund that, and the agents have not been held responsible. There's a very simple answer to be given, where you know who the agents are, you know who the employers are, and you tell them, listen, we'll bill you for that, besides the infringement that you have done.
Ask your question, please.
Yeah. No, I'm making a comment.
It's a comment.
It's a comment.
So they could ask a question or a comment. It's more
Okay,
a dialogue.
but this is the question time.
No, it's a comment. So, Ginny, please take into consideration that people who come here do know that what they're getting into. And sometimes it's complicit with agents. That's a comment. And to fulfill the requirement of a question.
It should be a Q&A, question time.
Louis, reframe it so we know what to do. Sorry. Yeah. Question that I have for you is, and to the panel, would you bring back the front officers so that we can interact directly with Immigration New Zealand and ask questions rather than going through agents, lawyers, third parties who pass on information that they want, they track the process. I think national government started closing offices. Now, it was a few years back. Today, to access immigration is just impossible. So the question to you all, and a comment as well, please reintroduce that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I can't speak about opening all of those offices, but what I do say is my 2 electorate offices operate exactly like that. So I deal directly between my office and Immigration New Zealand. We have a person we regularly contact, and we have I'd say presently about 30 to 40 files open that we consistently contact immigration to receive updates, to give people information quicker, to understand where residency applications are, and to go back and question when there's been a determination that seems unfair or wrong. And I've been quite successful. I've got a good rate of actually getting a good outcome. So my office is an open door to Immigration New Zealand, and it will continue to be. In relation to your comments, which I think was around migrant exploitation, the recent cases. So I've just got some things that I would like to say, that there's been a temporary relief package provided in order to support those people who have, who have been victims of a crime. Migrant exploitation is a crime, and it's disgusting to see that people take advantage of people and bring them here under false pretenses. So we want good employers in New Zealand, and we want people to be treated with respect. And if people break the laws of New Zealand, then they will be held accountable. So the suite of measures that have been introduced by the government will mean that there'll be a 6-month program in place of short-term basic financial support for those people who have been tricked into situations, and that will provide for their accommodation and for their living costs, and also for applications for the migrant. There'll be a new migrant exploitation protection visa. In most cases, the support will be delivered through those providers. So we're working closely with communities, and MPs' offices are key contact areas. So if there are people that anyone is aware of who has been affected by some of these swindling, exploitation rackets, we want to know about them, because they will be held accountable if they've broken the law.
Thank you, Janine.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Immigration New Zealand. In a long line of poor quality departments, Immigration New Zealand would have to be one of the sorriest excuses for a government department that I have seen. For reasons I don't understand, during COVID, when no one was coming to New Zealand, when they should have been redesigning the computer systems and gearing up this department so that it could handle what would be an inevitable flood of people who wanted to come after COVID. They didn't do that. So now we have a computer system that's completely stuffed, a whole processing system that's stuffed, and the whole department needs a ginormous overhaul. They're culturally stuffed. The way in which they interact with people is wrong, broken, unfair. Erica Stanford, who I know many of you in this room know, who's National's immigration spokesperson, has done an enormous amount of work trying to hold Immigration New Zealand to account. The way in which the system treated the so-called split migrant families during COVID was utterly inhumane and disgraceful. Had people who moved to New Zealand to take jobs in our very stretched health system who, because the system couldn't respond, were then split apart from their families in some cases for 12 to 18 months. This is just absolutely disgraceful. So the system needs an overhaul. And it's not just about bringing back face-to-face conversations, it's the whole system. And Ginny's office deals with immigration cases, so do my two offices. That's part of the problem. We shouldn't have 50 case files open in offices and everyone having to hire expensive lawyers to deal with the system. That's the whole point. That's the whole problem. So it's got to be simpler and easier and more efficient. We've got our immigration policy coming out in due course, but I think you will see that certainly from our side of the fence. Thanks.
Thank you. Would anybody like to comment on any of those remarks?
All right, I'll try to go very, very quickly then. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your question. I absolutely agree that the immigration service in New Zealand is not really doing a very good job. I think it's clear that they've been under-resourced. The number of applications coming in have been too much for them to deal with. And I agree with you as well about these, the impacts that I guess not fully, but the partial privatization of this sector has become, where people go through agents instead of dealing with the public service. The Opportunity Party believes in a strong and capable public service, and immigration is certainly one of those services that we would like to see solidly retained within the public sector. In terms of the people who have been doing these migrant exploitation things, I I thank the government for the support that it is giving to the people in that situation. But look, I just challenge them as well, because I think the immigration settings that they put in place during these years, it was very easy to predict that this kind of exploitation would happen. I think there were people at the time saying, look, if you make it so easy for people to approve these things, people are going to abuse it. And indeed, that's exactly what happened. And I think it would have been great if they had more foresight about that, made the rules a little bit tighter.
I don't know what the Green Party policy would be on whether we would put people in the front desk again, but I think the Green Party would definitely be open to talking about it if we got into Parliament.
Thank you, everyone. Our next topic is health and well-being issues. So just quickly to give you some bullet points. Long waiting times, I think it's not just for ethnic people, but in general. Priority based on race and poverty amongst Asians. So these are just some pointers that have come from other presentations as well. So we thought we will just give you some thought for questions. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask.
Services like surgery, drugs funding by pharmac, and eligibility for free screening. To promote social cohesion and ensure equity, if you got elected, will you restore the prioritization decisions to be made by medical professionals based on genuine clinical needs? Yes. Answer A, yes. Answer B, no. Thank you.
I just want to clarify that ethnicity is not a factor for elective surgeries. That's not a factor. It's not correct. So clinical need is the primary influence on priority surgery. That is, those who are the sickest are treated first, then those waiting the longest are prioritised. Clinicians in some areas have been working harder to manage those patients who are on unacceptably long waiting times. Māori, Pacific, rural and low-income people are more likely to languish at the end of the wait list. So those who have been waiting longer are prioritised. They are not prioritised on the basis purely of an ethnicity.
I mean, the fact that race is used is an indisputable fact, because the government has a thing called the Equity Adjuster tool, which is in use in Auckland. It's not in use in Wellington. I actually checked. I actually asked the Minister of Health a question specifically to find out whether or not it was being used in Wellington and the Hutt, and it's not. But it is in use in Auckland, and that is government policy. And when it sort of blew up about 6 weeks or so ago, the government put it under review. We're yet to sort of see the results of that review. But the whole purpose is to make, I mean, if it's not in use, the whole purpose of it is to mean that race is taken into account in some senses in the prioritisation of healthcare when it comes to surgery. And I think that's wrong, and it's not our policy. Our policy is healthcare on the basis of need, not race. Pretty simple. But if that's true, then what's the equity adjuster tool do then? I mean, it has to have some effect, otherwise it's just a status quo, and it's not.
Because they're disproportionately represented is what means it.
It's not the one factor that will. It's a factor, yeah. But you have to take. There are a couple of I'm not sure about the Green Party policy, but I'm from a public health background, so I'm very, very concerned and very aware of equity in the healthcare system. And what I'm saying to Chris is that there are a number of factors that you have to take into account when you prioritise any surgery or any kind of procedure. So, and I think what Jenny is saying is that race is one of them. So it shouldn't be at all. You think it should be? Because
No, I'm going to say what I'm saying.
Embrace the factor. Let me explain to you. My GP is like, clinically, being an Asian male, I'm a high-risk person. It's okay. I'm a high-risk person. But I'm not going to be seen to because, for whatever reason. So, clinically speaking, an Asian male over 50 is high-risk heart patient. I could not get seen to. Why is that a factor? Embrace the factor, then let's look at it on both sides, right? And all I'm asking is treat everybody fairly. Let the medical people make the decision. Not some politicians like you sitting there saying this is how it should be.
But it's not how I'm saying it. That's not what's happening.
Sorry, I disagree. My GP clearly told me, I'm embarrassed to tell you this, Chandresh, that you are a high-risk patient, but you won't be seen to.
Yeah, well, that's incorrect information your GP
Well,
gave
then
you.
you need to go and speak to my GP.
I'm
That
happy
she's
to
wrong.
do that. I'm happy to do that.
I disagree.
Okay. Do you have any comments on that, Dr. Vance?
I should clarify, I'm not a medical doctor. My doctorate was in physics and I am a scientist. I understand why we have ended up in a situation where we have race as a factor in this this medical prioritization tool. It is an undisputable fact that Māori and Pacific Islanders, among many ethnic groups, among many groups, have poorer outcomes right now. What we would like is for everybody to have more equitable outcomes, and this is what the government has chosen to do. I'm not sure if this is the tool that I would use, but I'm not expert enough to give a real opinion on that. This is not my field of expertise. I'm sorry.
I know we're running out of time, but feel free.
I didn't want to speak earlier because this is the multicultural community's time, but if you'll indulge me, I have the opportunity. We just heard this was happening. So I really want to support my friend here in his comment about immigration, and that, we've had some of the most racist legislation in immigration in any country in the OECD. You know that as multicultural societies, we know that as Pacificans. And I'm really glad to get Jenny's feedback about how many immigration cases she has. We go to those offices as agencies, we go there to take families when we cannot find a human being in the so-called back office to go and see, because we can't get through on a phone, and a lot of these changes happen during the time of Jim Bolger and Jenny Shipley. So please, my friends, do not be fooled with some of the stuff that's coming out. So that's a comment, and you've been very strong in your shepherding of us down a certain path, so I'll try my best to respect that. You also said earlier that housing is one of the areas where we experience the most racism in this country. It is so true. And in immigration policy, definitely a huge level of racism in the processing of our peoples, including you, my friends from the Multicultural Council and communities. The most racist policies and the way in which they've been perpetuated on our communities. Who have people who come to settle and contribute, because we have other family members here who are doing that, and who take responsibility for our settlement in this country. No dollar ever comes to us to help our families settle here. We fill our houses with our families. We educate and we find jobs. None of that is ever spoken about, nor has it ever been costed. Those are the kinds of things I want whoever comes into the next government, whoever forms it, must listen to in the next time round that has not been listened to in the last decade. The other thing is, in terms of the racism speak we've heard tonight, In April this year, National came out saying it would reinstate no pause evictions. Today and yesterday, we heard exactly that being said by the National Party. So, we are the highest OECD level of renters in this country, where 40% of us rent. And so I want to hear from National, how do you expect that racism won't be the basis of how that is actually implemented in this country? How do you expect that landlords are going to treat us with any respect with that kind of policy? Can you tell me that? Because we all know the real world operates on racism, whether you're talking about a doctor's decision, whether you're talking about a court decision, or whether you're talking about the kind of things that come out of your colleagues.
Well, thanks for the anti-national long rant. You seem very...
I'm asking you a question.
Yeah, I'm about to answer it. You seem very concerned about the 1990s. You mentioned Jim Bolger. I was 8.
I'm talking about what you said today and yesterday in the press.
Yeah, well, you seem to be blaming the current ills of the immigration system based on Jim Bolger.
That you would implement, this is
Yep, it's National Party policy.
I presume that you
Yep, it's National Party policy.
that you will have this no reason eviction policy.
Yep, and it was...
How about you explain how you ensure that no racism will become part of that policy?
It was the law up until 2 years ago, till Labor changed the law. We're going back to what it was. Discrimination on the basis of race in the provision of housing, as it is across multiple public interactions, is illegal, and it has been since the Human Rights Act 1993. That is the law now. The same way that if the other laws are enforced. That is legal now, and it will remain so. We're not proposing to change that.
Just conscious of time, we have to move on to the next topic. So we have, the next one is employment, which is a huge issue amongst ethnic communities as well. Just some key pointers around that is underutilization of the ethnic capability, the racial bias, and while we have this wonderful program, ethnic graduate program, that's been introduced, that's a great start. However, when it gets to higher levels, ethnic people are struggling to get to leadership roles or get into any sort of top positions in any of the sectors, private, public, or not-for-profit sectors. So it's quite a challenge. And upward mobility limited, as I just identified, and qualified people not recruited from the ethnic communities. If they see the name, they are just being sidelined. So any questions around that? Employment. So can I ask a question?
It has to be someone else.
Yeah.
Actually, before they can comment on that,
You have to give the mic.
I want to highlight poverty in the Asian sector. I think you've got the
I'll
statistics.
leave the mic here so you can pass on over.
We have circulated the data to you to show that actually the Asian community has the same problems that Pacifica and Maori community has. Whoever forms the government, please do not ignore that. Do not think that all Asians are rich, they're able to look after themselves. No. After 200 people that take the services every week, but 80% are elderly Chinese. Yeah. It may be new, but it's a fact. And so my request to you is please take note of that data that we have sent to you. That's from Stats New Zealand.
Yeah.
Then you can comment on the question on employment.
Anybody would want to comment on the employment stats that you just covered? On how do we...
Right. So just on employment, I think the major area where the government has an opportunity to lead is by making sure that the public sector has a better approach to ensuring that people from ethnic communities can reach leadership positions, can reach high income positions. I don't know how easy it is to change things in the private sector, but certainly the public sector can be more thoughtful and more careful and more mindful of the needs of our ethnic communities and its promotion practices and its hiring practices. I think that would be relatively straightforward to do, and I think that would be a great first step.
Oh, so, do you want to? You go. I'd just like to note that we have made good progress, and the public sector, I think, needs to be an example. That's something that we have influence in. So if we hold the public sector up as best practice, then hopefully we'll see that from the private sector as well. Since we introduced as a government tracking ethnic communities' representation on public sector boards, we started that in 2019, and since we've started tracking that, we've seen a 64% increase in representation since 2019. So we've still got more work to do, but the fact we can track it now and continue to encourage people to stand and encourage all those boards to have more diverse representation, I think makes for better decision making at those boards.
So systemic racism is a massive issue. Both my dad and my brother have both had that glass ceiling issue kind of in their employment lives. So my dad was a professor and my brother was a doctor, and they've both experienced racism, which has limited their abilities to keep developing in their professions. I think like systemic racism is one of the most it's a very disgusting and grotesque kind of thing. I don't like it at all, and it makes me feel really uneasy even to talk about, because it's just does not sit well with my values at all. But we need to be the human rights legislation, the Human Rights Commission. The Green Party really wants that they also feel systemic racism is something which we just need to get it out of our out of our culture, and by supporting and resourcing the Human Rights Commission, who, the Human Rights Commission really on the basis of race and discrimination, they really they feel that that's not something which belongs in our culture, and that is what we need to be focusing on. We need to be using the tools we've got to make sure we can get systemic racism out of our culture.
Thank you, Jenny, and thank you, everyone. We've got a couple more topics, but because we are running out of time, which is funding, which we highlighted earlier about the Ministry of Ethnic Communities, and also law and order, we really can't get through some of those topics. But however, before we close our session, I would like to invite Max Rangitutia from Vision New Zealand, who's also here. He is representing the Vision New Zealand party. He's candidate for Hutt South with a background as a project manager for large corporations, and brings a wealth of experience gained from years of work within the public sector. His decision to stand office is rooted in his belief that he possesses the necessary skills, experience, and unwavering passion required to make a substantial impact. So I would like to invite Max, 5 minutes max, to share your views and policies, and then we will be wrapping up. So thank you so much.
Kia ora, everyone. Thank you for this evening. Wasn't that good? Give a round of applause to everyone here. Awesome. So ko Max Rangitutia tāku ingoa. So I live here in the Hutt, in Lower Hutt actually. Love Lower Hutt. Been to Jenny's office, been to Chris's office. Great people that we get to be able to go there and see them in the flesh, which is great. That's me. Obviously, I'm from Ngāti Rokawa, Te Ao Māori, here out of the Waikato, and I've been in Wellington for about 5 years now. So love it. The place I wanted to be was in the Hutt. Love the people, love the diversity, love the culture. It's probably the place that I love being in the most. Even though, as Prabhu was saying, that I work all over the place, this is where I come home to. Vision Vision. What's the vision? Everyone heard about the vision? Probably not. So our vision is a small party that come under the umbrella of the Freedoms Party. So Party Freedoms NZ. And we have a whole bunch of policies like everyone else does, and we're bringing them out slowly as everyone else is. And the key thing that we focus on, and in my 2 or 3 minutes, is these 4 areas: families, finances, freedoms, and future. Those are the 4 key areas. And everything that we've spoken about tonight covers each one of those particular points. An example for families, we talk about education, about training our teachers, about the stuff that's going in front of our teachers that are having to enforce or to put onto our children from year 1 to year 5. That's another whole conversation around the sexualization of our kids. And then inclusion around, we really want to talk about inclusion and diversity and how we talk to everyone, it's by the person of the heart, not by the color. And so that's something that we're really topic on. Safety is another thing in families. So safety is a really big key because you can have all these great policies, but as you know, there are a lot of unsafe stuff still happening around here in the Hutt. And so we have a means and a way to get around that and to actually heal it. I'm a personal facilitator both in Wainui, Lower Hutt, and Upper Hutt for a Man Up group that helps men fix themselves out of the Rumataka prison and also out of social education stuff that comes through to us. We heal them and we see them, fix them, strip them down, fix them, and then put them back into their families, because we believe that if you heal the man, you heal the home. You heal a home, you heal a community. You heal a community, you can heal a nation. So that's around the families. Finances, cost of living. Love it. Cost of living or not. Right? There's a lot going on with that. I haven't got enough time to cover that, but what we want to do is less money in the government's puku and more into our pockets. And there's ways of getting that through to you guys via small and medium enterprises and having it actually trickle down to the people that need it. So it's a real key one, from almost the pits to the palace, so to speak. The third one, freedom. So this is really key, freedom of speech. Now we know that recently that's been a big question around how much we can say or not say, and what do we say. So that's a real key thing that we have a big say around the freedoms of speech. So we want to really tip that upside down and have a dig into that as well. And immigration, a big one for us is immigration, because there are so many skilled people that are coming over to New Zealand, and it almost feels like it's a task to get them through the whole paper trail. And as Chris was saying earlier, it's totally broken. It's absolutely broken to get someone who has a doctorate to get into help our hospitals so people can actually be seen. And so we've got a policy and a process for that as well. And then the last one is future. Families, finances, freedoms, and future. Better families, better finances, better freedoms, and a better future. How's that? Was that your one? It's my own timer in my own pocket. Yeah, so we believe that from Vision and the umbrella party, Freedoms NZ, is about better together. And that's what we really want to focus on, is about how do we all do this together, both in our families, in our education, and in our health. That's me. Thank you, everyone.
Well within the time frame. Thank you so much for that, Max. Okay, before we ask each of you to just give us a closing remark, I would get Louis to just wrap up some of the key points that each of you have shared with us today, and then we would have closing karakia and a vote of thanks by Manjit Singh.
So, kia ora. So, some of the key topics that we covered tonight was social cohesion and the recommendations of the Royal Commission. What we heard was fostering diversity, but what we didn't hear was how are the government going to fund small NGOs doing the work in the community. So that is still to be answered in the community, and how those recommendations will be implemented is a question that we need to still ask the government. And then we move to the education. We acknowledge that racism is okay. And to be honest, like we still have a lot of work to do in the community, but not just at the school level. We still have a lot of work to do at the government, at the ministries, at the business, and at the police level. Did you know that our police only receives 2 hours of ethnic community workshop when they are training to be police officers? So that's a lot of work to be done in that regard. Immigration is always a hot topic. And as always, we don't have the answers. Immigration is still inaccessible for most communities, and the answers and the questions remain unanswered. And then we move to employment, a very hot topic. And you, Chris, was in the youth employment last week. I was there because our youth communities are going to be the ones that are going to be in the workforce, majority, but there's no opportunities for them. So it's again, we still need to hear those policies that we didn't hear today. And did I miss any other topic? I think I'm going to give the microphone to our candidates to give a final remark, just really quick.
Thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure to have a great conversation tonight about some big issues. In terms of racism, the main issue we've talked about tonight, the way I've always perceived racism is a fear of the unknown. So if we are afraid of what we don't know, then that's where hate and ignorance comes from. So we need to know each other, we need to understand each other, and we need to be able to get to know each other a little bit better. And I see that as being the greatest antidote to racism. I think we're so lucky in New Zealand to have the Treaty of Waitangi as a basis, a mutual respect for 2 cultures and a partnership. It is that platform that our multicultural society has been built on, and that understanding and mutual respect is so important about what we teach our children and how we go forth and build New Zealand. I'm really proud to be not only the MP for Hutt South, but part of New Zealand and a country that treats people with respect. But we need to keep working at that, and we need to identify those people who divide and those people who speak against and to show disdain to that. And we also need to encourage our children so the next generation of New Zealanders will be better than what we are. I'm asking you to vote Labour so we can be a united country that respects each other and celebrates and encourages our diversity. And I'm asking you to vote for me, Ginny Anderson, because I work damn hard for the Hutt.
Ready? Cool. Sorry, just he's trying to keep time. So the Green Party, like as I've explained today, the Green Party has a plan to protect the environment, to restore nature, and to create an inclusive and accessible Aotearoa that works for literally everyone who comes here. But you know, we can't do this without getting more Green MPs into our parliament. So I'm asking you guys today to party vote. Use your party vote for the Green Party, because we want to make a government that puts people and planet before profit. The time is now. Party vote Green. Kia ora.
Well, thank you so much for your attention today. I hope I've answered some of your questions around what TOP's approach would be for your ethnic communities. And I just want to close by giving a sort of a broad overall vision of where TOP wants to take us as a country and what I would like to do in Parliament. So I'm really worried for the future of our country, because we have built a New Zealand where, in order for a young person to earn enough money to pay for a place to call home, to pay to raise a family, and to save for their retirement, they have to be truly exceptional. This is not within the reach of ordinary people anymore, and that is a very scary place to be sitting for the future of our children, for the future of our country. I think we need to do more for our young people and more just as a whole nation to get us back to a place where a normal job can pay for the things of a normal life. I think this is sort of the most crucial thing that we have to do, and the biggest barrier that I see in the way across the nation is the cost of housing that we all face, cost of rent and the cost to purchase a new home, to have that stability and security. Oh, I was going to say, I thought that was a short minute. I won't take too much of your time. We have a lot of policies, and I don't intend to explain them to you there, but there will be nobody who is fighting harder to bring down the cost of rent and housing than the Opportunities Party. So if this is your biggest issue, I ask you for your vote for the Opportunities Party and for me, Ben Wiley Vanier. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much for coming along tonight. It's wonderful to see so many people, and as always in these forums, I've learned something tonight, and hopefully you have learned a little bit about all of us and what our priorities are as well. Look, many people in the room are familiar with me. I know some of you, I know many of you, and I think you know that with me you get someone who works really hard for Lower Hutt, works on the issues that are important to our community, is always open and accessible. My door is always open for people who need assistance with housing, immigration, whatever. I'm someone that can be approached, and my office and I will help, and that will continue. I value the work of being an MP, and I greatly enjoy it. I find it very satisfying, and getting to make a difference on a day-to-day basis for the people of Lower Hutt is something that is what the job is all about, and it's something that I enjoy a lot. With National, you'll get a government that's focused on fixing our broken immigration system. As I say, we've got policy coming out in due course, but that's a real priority for us. With me, you get someone who will work hard. So I'm asking for you to party vote for National with your party vote, and to vote for me, Chris Bishop, with your candidate vote. Thanks very much.
Can we give a big round of applause to all our candidates today for coming, making the time to come and share with us and speak to us. We know you're very busy people campaigning hard out, and we wish you all the very, very best in your campaign. And I would invite Manjit to close the session. Thank you.
Well, I think it takes courage. It takes patience for them to come out here, stand for elections. They all are good people. They have all good intentions for all of us. Our choice is a difficult one, but unfortunately we can only choose one. Yeah, we don't have the luxury of choosing all of them. So I hope today you got some idea of what they stand for, what is important to them, and how they see issues of us, the ethnic community, which currently is the second largest segment demographically, how we will be stakeholders in New Zealand and an important stakeholder in New Zealand. So we hope that you have learned something, like Chris said. You have learned their positions, and you will make the right choice. I would like to thank all of you, and I also like to thank Prabha and Louis and our audience for coming along and helping us today. Thank you very much. Have a good night. And good luck to you all, you guys.